On this week's episode of An Echo of Glory, we look ahead to the North London derby. We chat to journalist Tom Barclay and former Spurs player and Arsenal fan Darren Bent. Welcome to another episode of An Echo of Glory. Joining me this week, it's Jake Sanders. Hello.
Hello.
And Gary Diamond. Hello.
Morning.
Always disconcerting when the producer walks in just as we've started. We in trouble? Didn't work.
No chance.
Squad rotation, Jake Robson on international duty. So I've got you two for company. Hello.
Hello.
So we're going to, Jake Robson reminded me this morning, do the socials. So a reminder, we are on Instagram and on Twitter at EOGTHFC. Gary's got his phone out, already just checking the socials. And on TikTok, which Gary hates, that is Echoes THFC, ECHOES. And a reminder, you can now become an Echo of Glory member. Join us on our YouTube channel next to the subscribe button. Thanks to those who have already done so this week. Really great to have you in our members area. Right. You don't like TikTok, do you?
No, I'm not a child.
I love Jake's straight face.
I was just thinking it's quite nice to film not being quite miserable because we've not played.
Is that where you were? You'd gone off. You weren't really listening
Just
to
thinking,
me.
no, yeah, this is going to be a lot more joyful than probably. Well, I'm not here next week, but next week.
What do you mean? You're like Mr. Positive at the moment. You're our Jake Robson.
No, it's not that I'm Mr. Positive. I just put an analytical view to things.
You will not be positive when we're on 4 points from 4 games.
Are you seeing? You're
2 points from 8 games, isn't it?
Okay, a little bit of club news. We're going to start with. I'm going to start with the women's team. They've made a couple of signings this week. Anna, I can't actually pronounce her surname. Shiki, a Hungarian midfielder, and a goalkeeper, Caitlin Talbot, on loan from West Ham. They sold Celine Bizet, who's a good player, to Man United. Could they not have given us Grace Clinton in return?
You'd like to think.
But they're not going to.
No, she's a wonderful player.
And some less good news is that Kit Graham has done her ACL again, and there's talk she'll be out for the season. That's the second one in a few years for her, so God knows what that recovery will be, if at all. In terms of the men's teams, juniors didn't play this week. Everyone off on international duty. We've got a few players out there on international duty. No one in the England squad yet again.
Coolers look good.
Captain
in an
Sweden.
amazing Sweden team, by the way.
Yeah,
serious front four with Isak, Gokares and Elanga. Really, really good
So
team.
Kulu captained the side. They beat Estonia last night, Sunday night, 3-0.
Did Bergvall play last night?
He's come off the bench in both games. A few others have played. Won't go through every one. But a player that's not going to play much for us, we all thought he might, is Jed Spence. Not in our Europa League squad. Bit weird?
I think so. Yeah, definitely. I was doing the permutations for that Europa League squad, and I had him in there. I think it is a big blow to Spence. I can only think, and I hope it isn't this, I hope there hasn't been a relapse of attitude or anything like that, because outside of that, I can't see the justification for it. There were spaces to be had. I just don't think, I think it's a bad message from Ange to the other two keepers to take Fraser Forster, and I think it's a bad message to Spence to take Fraser Forster at his expense. I don't see the point of Forster.
I don't agree with you. Okay. I think taking four goalkeepers is odd.
But it's not technically, is it? Because they don't count though.
Yeah.
So you'd be essentially taking one goalkeeper, one senior goalkeeper for eight games.
But I feel like Forster he's almost a coach now, and I feel like you're always going to have that experienced goalkeeper with you in Europe.
So you could take him along, put him on the plane, but he hasn't got to be in the squad.
No, that is true.
I don't get the point of not having Jed Spence. I think it's a bad message to Spence. I hope it's been delivered to him in the right way if it isn't as a consequence of a relapse of attitude. And I hope Spence has the mental fortitude to knuckle down and keep going, because I've got a lot of time for that guy. I think he could be a really good player, so I'm a bit concerned about that.
Thoughts?
I'm gutted for Spence, but I don't think it's a major deal. I don't. I'm sorry. I can't get disheartened by Jed Spence being left out of a Europa League group league campaign, whatever you want to call it.
You don't find it odd?
Yeah, no, it is odd. It is odd, but I'd rather Archie Gray get minutes than Jed Spence.
Do you think that's it for Spence now?
Not necessarily. It'll be interesting to see what happens against Coventry. I think that could be quite a key game because, if we've got consecutive Europa League games after that, so it'd be interesting to see that. I mean, yeah, if he doesn't play that game, you can, without jumping to conclusions, you could don't want to say that's the end for him, but you can already see, based off this decision, a loan deal in January, which is a shame because he came on in the first 2 games, and I'm quite surprised. But in terms of having a massive negative effect on us on the pitch, I don't think it is. Morale maybe. I don't know how popular Spence is.
I don't think it's a negative impact on the pitch, but I think it is a negative impact on the squad in the sense that he could be a very key squad player. We've spoken a lot about how he essentially saved us 30-40 million in the summer through needing to sign.
Yeah, I know, but I think it's Galatasaray away, Brandon Austin, 4 professional games to his name, Rangers away. You fancy that? Yeah,
but I mean, we've got to be good enough to beat these teams regardless.
But it's not as goalkeeper is such an important position.
I don't fancy Fraser Forster against them either.
Well, when he, apart from that League Cup game against Fulham, Fraser Forster was absolutely fine in every single game. So personally, I would much rather an experienced international, senior goalkeeper than 2 that have not played a minute. And if that's at the expense of Spence, then so
that's
be
a fair
it.
Point. It's a fair point.
Look, time will tell. Maybe we've left ourselves, not just because of the goalkeeper, maybe we could have, left Werner out or someone else, I don't know.
Werner clearly has been signed for Europe.
No, I know, but just in terms of potentially leaving us short, whether it's, maybe it shouldn't be between Spence and Forster, whether it, could we have, not Van der Ven, but could we have done what Chelsea did? But they've done that because they're playing the teams you've never heard of. Yeah, I know, but yeah.
Anyway. Moving on. We didn't have you on last week, Gary. No. So this is a North London derby, really, preview show. But we have to talk about the start to the season with you and the Newcastle game. We've had an interesting time on our YouTube comments with some positive, some negative on our reaction to last week's show. Well, we weren't that happy, right? We lost to Newcastle. Good afternoon to N17 Stu, who's been in our mentions, giving us some crap. That's his right. You're a lot more positive than I am at the moment, I think.
I think you asked the last time we were on what we learnt in the first 2 games against Leicester and Everton. And it was hard really to say, but I think there were a lot of learns against Newcastle. And I think when you remove the disappointment of the result, and the disappointment bites as much as it does because of the manner of the performance. If we'd gone there and got thumped 6-0, you'd come away and just be like, oh, we're crap. But when you lose and you feel like you've been the better team, it hurts all the more. So that's the first thing to say is, I think people are going about Newcastle with a little bit of disrespect. I'm not saying this to sort of make the result sound any more positive. I'm saying this to make the performance sound more positive. I don't think in the Premier League, I can only think of 2 front threes that I can say are better, absolutely categorically better than Isak, Gordon and Harvey Barnes. And those are at Liverpool and City. I'm not even sure that Saka, Havertz and whoever, Martinelli, are better than those 3. When you've got a midfield 3 with Joel Linton, Guimaraes and Tonali, as it was when they scored the second, that is as good a midfield 3 as you could see anywhere, as balanced and as technical as you could see anywhere as well. Very, very strong. At St James's Park, this is the magnitude of the task that it was. And for me, we battered them.
We played well.
Right? And the disappointments were in, for me, the big disappointments were really in the lack of how clinical we were. And what I mean by that is you can often talk about XG, and when you've got high XG and low goals, you say, well, that's just terrible finishing, but at least you're creating the chances. Our XG wasn't actually that high. And Ange sort of referenced this, where he said there were about 10, 15 opportunities where we didn't kill them. And we did have that opportunity. I can think of 4 or 5 straight off my head. I think of Son going through in the second half. He's got to give it left to Odegaard, who's in. Kulusevski, even in the last minute when we turned him over high up the pitch, and he's got to slip it to Johnson, and Johnson's in, and we just didn't.
Yeah, but those aren't moments where you have your head in your hands thinking he should score that.
Well, no, because the final ball to create the chance was the wrong ball. The decision-making was wrong. But we turned Newcastle over 15 times high up the pitch, right? That's when you've got to be clinical. Those are your moments for me, much more so than when they're camped and with 10 behind the ball on the edge of the box. And again, for people saying this was Newcastle's game plan, I don't believe any home team ever has a game plan to concede 20 shots at goal. It's not their game plan. And further evidence of that is the fact that we did turn them over 15 times high up the pitch. They tried to play out. They couldn't get out. So for me, the disappointments were in the lack of decision-making, the lack of clinical finishing with the final ball, not the finishing of actual chances, but that decision making for the final ball. But I think there were a lot of positives, even learns. Set pieces. Don't think anybody's really looked like scoring. 3 big teams: Leicester, Everton, Newcastle. None of them have really looked like scoring a set piece. There were 4 at the back. People were saying last season you can't defend with 2 at the back. Actually, they scored with 4 at the back. There was a flat line of 4, and Romero just didn't react. The other 3 were heading in towards goal, and Romero didn't react. But there were 4 back there. Udogie and Porro aren't overlapping or underlapping as much as they were. There is more structure to it all. And that's probably why we're able to turn it over higher up the pitch.
I can't disagree with any of that. You know my thoughts on us being a little bit porous, certainly away from home. But at least we've got a home banker to come on Sunday.
But again, this is a game where they hit us with set pieces last season. So it's going to be very interesting.
Well, they hit us with set pieces and on the counter.
Yeah, the counter should have been a penalty.
And you blamed Højbjerg.
And Højbjerg was dreadful for that goal. Yeah, he was. But, look, we'll see it's another big, big test. But I'm seeing things against Newcastle that I think when you take a step back from the result, I thought it was a really positive performance and a lot of learns. Even things like starting to make them tactical fouls on the edge of the box when Newcastle were breaking out. Madison went about it in the wrong way and got a booking, which the butterfly effect was that, or the ripple effect was that led to the goal because he couldn't bring Joel Linton down. But, I think he got booked for that. I think we had another booking for somebody that made that foul. That's the foul that we've got to make, playing the way that we are. We've got to be a bit more subtle about it. So there are learns. Defensively better from set pieces. 4 at the back, and I think you'll see that again against Arsenal. I think you'll see that flat line of 4 with the fullbacks not overlapping as much. And it will give us more rigidity.
Listen, the start to the season's been patchy, but the performances have been fine, and that's a positive because the wins will come. And hopefully, starting Sunday. You're not there, are you? You've had this. You mentioned this last week, I think. You're a wedding.
A wedding, yeah.
Yeah, but your home record with us is rubbish. So
I went to Everton.
Oh God, yeah, they don't count as a football team at the moment. All right, should we get in the North London derby spirit? Get the previews going. Talk to a journo. All right, let's do that right now. Delighted to be joined by senior football writer for The Sun, Tom Barclay. Tom, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure, guys. Nice to speak to you.
So we'll go straight in. It's been a topsy-turvy start to the season. It's caught fire on social media, as it always does. Have you seen it?
Yeah, there has been a lot of, what shall we say, knee-jerk reaction, I'd say, from the first few games. But I guess...
Why are you looking at me?
The reason...
Sorry, they're looking at me.
I'm not looking at anyone in particular, but I suppose part of that is due to the way the last season ended and the expectation that they would have a quick start like they did last year to try and get back to where they were, really. And I think, having been at the Leicester game, I wasn't at the other games, I was off, but obviously caught them on TV. There is a lot to be positive about. There is a lot to be frustrated about in those particular performances, but I suppose, like the old cliche about a striker, it's better when they get chances and miss them than not getting any chances at all. It's kind of relevant to Spurs overall. When they're playing well, like they did in that first half against Leicester, obviously the Everton game, and quite a lot of the second half against Newcastle, they were breathtaking to watch. And that gives me a lot of confidence, particularly with a lot of young players, that they will grow from here. Yeah. But, there are reservations about how open they can be at the back. That Newcastle winner really sort of exploited that. And with young players, which is what they've invested in, you're always going to get a level of inconsistency and with that frustration at times.
Tom, it feels as though we're already at a point in the season where this North London derby is big for Tottenham. It holds a lot of significance. It always does. But we have had a bit of a slower start. There is a bit of frustration creeping. How important is this game for both teams? Because Arsenal need to kick on as well. And how do you see it going?
Yeah, it is important. I almost wonder if they would prefer it to be an away game at this stage because the expectation would be lower. And we looked at the fixture list, the early fixture list for Tottenham, and there was 2 ways of looking at it. One was this could be a real springboard for success this season if they have a good start. And the other side was like, oh, that's a tough start. You don't want to start away to a newly promoted team, even though I still expect Leicester to be relegated, to be honest, or at least be in a relegation battle. It's just, you don't want that for your first match. Right, Everton at home, you do want that. That was that was a
a
good
gimme.
fixture. But then Newcastle away, obviously, is a hard game, and particularly for Tottenham in recent years. So that was tough. And then to follow up with the North London derby, particularly at home, when you think about how the last one went and how torn apart they were from set pieces. The pressure's on to a certain extent, and I don't know. I always find it interesting speaking to Spurs fans because I cover Tottenham, but I'm not a fan. I obviously kind of hope they do well because it makes my job easier. And when you're invested in it, something you want them to do well, and you get to know the people involved. But I'm always interested to see how their kind of reaction is with Ange these days because there was such a love-in from the beginning. There was obviously such a mystique around him, and the performances were great and the results were great. But then it started to turn. We had that completely sort of unique and bizarre fixture towards the back end last season against City, which obviously had its connotations with Arsenal winning the league, which I think he holds his hands up. He got that completely wrong. He misjudged the mood. But I do wonder at the time how much damage there was done between him and the fan base. Not to say it wasn't, able to repair it at all, but there was a bit of a fraying at the time from that initial, all those after the game, the sort of "I'm loving Big Ange instead" kind of songs at the end of games. That's why I kind of felt like he could have done with a bit of a fast start. You go into this game against North London Derby, and if they lose, and particularly if they have a sort of unconvincing performance, then I don't worry for him, but I guess he just could really do with it. And to answer your question, it does feel quite important, even though it's only fourth game of the season.
Just to pick up on that, it depends which Spurs fans you speak to. But I'm fully behind Ange, personally. I'll put it out there, 100% fully behind Ange, regardless of what happens in the North London Derby. I think against City, he has to always take the view of I want to win. So he's done the right thing, but he could have been a bit more sensitive to how the fans are feeling. But we're on a process. I hate to use the word because it sounds very Arteta-like, but it is a process. And I think Spurs fans have got to realise that and be fully behind him and what we're trying to achieve. Sorry, Jake.
Away from the North London Derby, Tom, you're obviously on England duty this week. The second squad in a row that we've got no players in, which is rare because even when we've not been, in the top sort of four, we've always had players, for the last 20, 25 years in England squads. I'm looking at two players, Maddison and perhaps Solanke and maybe ambitiously Archie Gray. Do you see any of them breaking into that England squad before next summer, let's say? Or getting back in Maddison's case?
I think Solanke's got a great chance, but he's obviously got to go and prove it now. I mean, I think pretty much all Spurs fans and wider Premier League fans have looked at that transfer. If they properly looked at it, not just thought, oh, Dominic Solanke, he was the guy at Liverpool and Chelsea who couldn't score a goal and 65 million seems a lot. They really look at it and base it on how much he's progressed as a player. It feels like one of the most sort of well-fitting transfers I've seen for a while because of obviously his pressing was the best of any striker centre forward last season. That really fits with Ange's style. He's not a Harry Kane finisher, but he's a reliable finisher. And he brings the ball and he holds the ball up. He brings others into play. It just seems like and he's hungry. Everything that you'd want from it. Having said all that, he's not done it at this level yet. So until it happens, which I have a lot of confidence that it will, you got to wait and see because sometimes players can't make to that level. But like I said, I've got confidence it will. And when he's fit, obviously, and he starts banging in the goals, when you look at England's lack of options now behind Harry Kane, there's a slot there, particularly with Ivan Toney going to Saudi Arabia. So you'd fancy his chances. Maddison has got a lot of work to do, clearly, because what I would be worried about from his point of view is that Bellingham wasn't fit. Foden wasn't fit. Yeah. Grealish was the one to play number 10. Carsley played a number 10 and he picked Grealish, who hasn't played in that position for ages. So there was, if he really wanted him, kind of like Grealish, because Grealish hasn't really been playing, hasn't really been fit, hasn't even played in that position for ages. And yet he was picked and massively justified it with his performance and his goal. But that was a slot open for Maddison. If he can't get in now, that's a bit of a concern. Yep. But I think he's actually started the season pretty well. I think if they'd won those games, particularly at Newcastle, there would have been more of a focus on maybe James Maddison is back. I think Bergval's signing has really helped him. It's, given him sort of more of a reason to improve his performances, literally just, the importance of having competition. He's obviously He looks fitter as well. So there's definitely a place there for him, because you look at the way Carsley plays, he should be able to fit into that. Archie Gray is really exciting, but he's got to get in the Spurs team first. Interesting to see where he gets in there. I mean, I think defensive midfield makes the most sense, but he does pick Basuma, and obviously with Basuma's misdemeanor at the start of the season, that didn't help him, but he's straight back in, isn't he? He's still only 18. So it's up to him to sort of prove how quickly along his development he can be. And if he can do that, then Carsley's definitely someone, as he's already proven from his Spurs squad, who is willing to take a risk on young players.
On Archie Gray, I think he's an absolutely brilliant talent. But I noticed he played for the under-21s against Northern Ireland last week at sort of right wing back. Do you think there's a danger for him that he doesn't find a position and he gets moved around, and that could be an issue for him?
No, not at this stage, because he's 18.
Yeah.
I think it's about game time, fitting in. I think it was quite telling when Jed Spence got left out of the Europa League squad that Gray's likely to be the backup there. The fact that Ange last season was asked in a press conference about signing another centre-back after he'd signed Dragazin, and said, yeah, that was something he wanted to do in the summer. Obviously didn't happen. And then when he was asked about that a couple of weeks ago, he said, no, I'm fine there. I've obviously got Ben Davis who can play there, but also Archie Gray. So he sees him as an option there, as he played him against Hearts in another preseason game. It's not just defensive midfield. It's further forward in that midfield that I think he can play. I think at this stage, his versatility is an asset. If you ask, if we're 4 years down the line and he's becoming a Phil Neville type player, then that's different. Mm-hmm. But at this stage, I think it's all good experience. As great as he was in the Championship and as exciting a young talent as he is, this is, again, like I was talking about Solanke, this is a new level. Yeah. He's getting used to it. He's getting used to a new team. So all sort of experience, I think, at the moment is good for him.
And Tom, just before we let you go, got to get your prediction for Sunday.
I mean, Arsenal, obviously, I think they've started pretty well. Brighton, the red card didn't help. The red card was quite ridiculous, to be honest. But Brighton are a good team. I think they're going to be dangerous, aren't they? I think maybe quite a lot of it hinges on Solanke being fit, so we'll wait to see what happens with him coming back, because they really lacked him at Newcastle. But my concern at the moment is they still seem to be being opened up at times, and I think Arsenal are the kind of team, as we saw last season at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, particularly with Saka, who are able to sort of exploit that. So I think there'll be goals. If I'm being optimistic, I think maybe 2-2 draw, a bit like the away game last season. They've definitely got it in their locker. That's why I think that's one of the reasons I'm so positive about Postecoglou when any sort of Spurs fans who are down on it. And I do think part of that is because there's such this pressure to win something after so many years. But you watch a lot of teams, particularly Conte, and you think they'll hit a wall, they'll play a team, no matter how they play, and it just, even with Kane in the team, they will lose. I think Postecoglou's team doesn't really have a ceiling, and it can beat anyone on its day. It's about putting that consistency together, and not just beat anyone, but beat anyone in a beautiful way.
Yeah. So 4-0 Spurs, you're saying?
That gives you confidence. Say again?
You're saying 4-0 Spurs. Lovely.
4-0 Spurs, yeah. Long-winded answer. 2-2 is what I'll go
2-2. Tom, listen, really, really good to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers, Tom.
He was positive, wasn't he?
Told
He
you.
can come again. He's lifted the mood.
4-0 win, he said.
Well, I kind of prodded him, but yeah.
2-2 draw, he said.
That's kind of what's going around my head. I know we'll do our
I think
predictions.
everyone's going into the weekend is saying 2-2.
2-2.
Because it's like, deep down, I think, but majority of Spurs fans deep down thinking we're going to lose, but
I think we're
optimistically saying we'll get a 2-2 draw, because I don't want to say we'll lose.
He's right. Like the way we play with Ange, you're never really out of a game because you know the wave of attacks are still going to be coming. Yeah, I think we can do them. I think we absolutely can do them. We nearly scraped a draw out of them last year when we were dead. So yeah,
it feels like we might be playing them at a good time. That doesn't mean that we're definitely going to beat them, but we probably, they've made a slow start to the season, post international break. A lot of our players aren't away. Quite a few of them aren't away, and I quite like that. And no Rice is big, and yeah, they're not exactly firing. So hopefully we can catch them cold, and that's a good time to play them, I hope.
Was it second time since 2011-12 that we've played them at home first in the
We won
season?
both of them. There's a good omen.
Yeah.
We won both of them.
2-0 in 2020.
Yeah, and 2-1
Kyle
in
Walker.
2011, yeah.
That's a
Walker
good
and
omen.
Van der Vaart.
It's a good omen. I want to get you into the North London Derby spirit by having a little quiz,
Go on.
which Jake tells me he's going to win.
Probably my memory is dreadful, and we know that he's very good.
It's called Off the Top of Your Head. This is a visual thing.
I
So,
usually am off the top of my head on North London Derby, so this isn't going to go well for me at all.
so if you are listening to us, you will find this on our YouTube channel, a nice visual for you. So it's a quiz called Off the Top of My Head, Off the Top of Your Head. It's people that have scored for Spurs in the North London Derby, but it's just their foreheads.
Oh. I might not be as good now.
Oh, okay, not so
Got
cocky
terrible
now.
eyes.
Right, I'm going to hope this works.
What, in the Premier League?
In the Premier League.
Is this a buzzer thing? Like we just
Shout it out.
right?
We've got 10 of these, and I'll be keeping score. Who's that?
Aaron Lennon.
No.
Nuruddin Nobet.
1-0 Gary.
Bloody hell, that's a
That is Nuruddin Nabet.
great shout.
Great shot. Scored in the 5-4.
Yeah,
Scored
it's a
the
great
eight,
game.
didn't
That
9 different scorers. Right, 1-0 Gary. Who's this?
Edmund.
No.
I was going to say
It's,
it.
I know it is the left back. Rigo. Zeto Riegler.
No,
Rigo
he
Zeti.
didn't score in North
You
London.
still haven't got his
Alan
name right, but it's
Nielsen.
not him. It's Alan Nielsen.
Zeto Riegler.
How many different versions of Reto Ziegler's name can Gary say? Brilliant. That was Alan Nielsen. 1-0. Scored in a 1-0 win.
1-0, 95.
Yeah, around then. Next.
Eric Dyer.
No.
Stefan Everson.
Correct.
Dyer's got such similar hair to that.
Yeah, scored in a 2-0 win or 2-1 win.
2-1.
Sherwood also scored, I think. Next up.
Sherwood scored a free kick.
So hang on, who got
Yeah.
that? Gary?
That was
Yeah,
me.
it's 2-1 to Gary.
German Ziege.
It's before my time, isn't it?
Christian
Very
Ziege.
good. Because I knew who it was, but I
that was my
forgot.
first North London derby.
Christian Ziege.
That looks like a
rocket.
photo from the 90s.
Absolute rocket of a left foot free kick, that. And I think we won 1-0.
Yep.
No, we
Bang.
drew 1-0. We drew 1-0, yeah.
So that's 3-1 to Gary. Who's this?
Tom
Lennon.
Huddleston.
No, neither of them.
Thought Walker for, is it?
Not Lennon, not Huddleston.
Famous
not-
Tottenham Hotspur North London derby goal on his debut. No one knew he was going to play.
Danny Rose.
Danny Rose.
God, the hair put me off a bit.
The picture of Danny Rose isn't working. So
Google it.
Robbie Keane.
no, that isn't Robbie Keane.
What?
Or even Leonardo. No.
Do you know what? Again, I know the answer. When I pressed it, I was like, I didn't do Robbie Keane. It's not Robbie Keane.
I was thinking it could be Son for a sec.
Well, connected to Son, he scored a goal. that-
Liam Pugh.
No,
I was thinking that, but he
no,
didn't score.
No, he scored a goal that was nominated for the Puskás Award.
Eric Lamela.
That was Eric Lamela.
What?
Yeah.
I've never
I was
got
seeing,
that.
an Englishman, a
So
South
it's
Korean,
still
and
3-2 to Gary.
Is it not 3-0?
No, he didn't get that.
Van der Vaart.
Ericsson.
Van der Vaart. Scored a few goals against that lot.
Yeah,
Loved
he
it.
was
And loved it,
brilliant.
yeah.
I loved him.
3-3. Oh, again, I've forgotten who that is.
Can we zoom in a bit?
Okay. No.
Thought it was Rebrov for a sec.
Great shout.
When did Rebrov score against Arsenal?
Yeah.
Well played.
He's
He
on-
did not score
He's on
against
my
Arsenal.
list of scoring against
He
Arsenal.
did not score against
well, I'm
Arsenal.
going to look that up.
If he didn't score against Arsenal, you don't get the point.
I'd get 2 points.
2 more to go. That one, that's quite an
Darren
easy
Anderton.
one. Darren Anderton.
Great shot.
That's 4-4. So, because one you didn't get, this is a decider.
Wait, what one didn't we
You
get?
don't get-
I had to tell you about Eric Lamela.
yeah.
I got Lamela.
Yeah, but I literally had to
He
tell
li-
you.
God.
Teddy. Not Teddy.
No. I'll let you stew
John
over that one.
Scales. No.
It's 90s.
No.
God, blimey, who is that?
I think he scored in a game that I've already mentioned. I think I might have actually mentioned him. He did score. Rebrov did score. Monday, the 18th of December 2000, in a 1-1 draw. Vieira scored an 89th minute equaliser. So,
Sherwood.
correct. Tim Sherwood. Gary
played.
nicks it 5-4.
Good quiz.
Good quiz, yeah, eh? You know, just show,
I can't believe
just
Rebrov
cobbled
scored
together.
against Arsenal. Was it a diving header?
I think I remember the celebration, but I don't remember the goal. It might have been a diving header. And Patrick Vieira scored late. And I left early that day. I remember coming down the stairs and hearing an equaliser for Arsenal, number whatever, Patrick Vieira. You know, oh, for God's sake.
Vieira used to always score against us.
We are, Gary, we're about to talk to someone who scored in the North London derby.
You didn't put him up.
No, well, you're going to get a good look at him in a minute. We're going to talk to Darren Bent, but I have to go back to that 4-4 in October 2008. I mean, we talked to Darren about that. Your memories of that game? Because, like I've said numerous times on this pod, you were one of the few still in the ground.
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me that you stayed, knowing how optimistic you are.
No,
you probably thought we could still win, didn't you?
No, well, I'll tell you what happened was, I think it went to 4-2, and Spurs fans just started like filtering out. And I don't know if I'm right or wrong in this, but I thought I heard over the tannoy, as I was about to go, and I thought I heard over the tannoy say a problem on the train.
Yeah, that's right. I've heard that from people that were there. So people
and
stayed
I
just
went,
because
and I
they
just went,
thought.
oh, sod it, whatever, it's going to be long home anyway.
I've heard
so
that.
I was literally going to go, but I heard over the tannoy problem on the train, and I thought I'll just suck it up and stay till the end. Thank God. Like, literally thank God, because that was carnage. I think I sprained my ankle as well, because, you know, like, when there's nobody there, but people that are there just, like, fall forward.
It's still the most
fall
incredible
forward.
away end to look at, especially as, you know, as a club like Spurs where every single away end is sold out. I can't really recall us ever scoring an equaliser or winning goal where there's not a full away end, and it's literally like 20% full.
Kabul's was good. I wasn't at that North London, but that away end, because the great thing about Kabul's goal from the camera angle is that the free kicks come in.
The only thing about
On the
Kabul's
away
goal
fans.
is the fact he didn't celebrate in front of the away fans always bugs me.
Yeah, but
Score a last-minute winner against
but it is
Arsenal at the Emirates and go back to the touchline.
But it is a great view.
Yeah,
of
no,
the
it
away
is,
fans.
it is,
So
it is.
that's a great away end. But other than that, also the
Dele Alli one was...
Dele Alli, I was at that
was
game.
amazing.
That was good. But the 4-4, do you know what? I don't know why. It's just... It's one of them, and Arsenal fans go, small club mentality. But honestly, you're 4-2 down, away from home against Arsenal, going into injury time, and you draw 4-4. I mean, absolute carnage. It was brilliant.
It's one of the goals I regret not being able to celebrate the most ever.
Do you know, if they had VAR though now, you wouldn't have been able to celebrate it.
Well, I
because
would
Aaron
have. It
Lennon-
would have just been chalked off.
He was...
Yeah, I'm sure he was offside.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope he was offside. I actually really want him to be offside. I want to draw lines and prove that he was offside.
We've looked at it at work. He was off.
Oh, he was?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Even
I love
better,
it even
isn't
more.
it?
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Did you say to me
I was
before-
away, yeah. I was in Turkey and I couldn't get the game. And as I say, that's just one of the goals that, you know... 'cause it was like 96th minute, weren't it? So it was like... It wasn't even like 88th where you go mad and think, oh, we could concede. You celebrate as if it's like full time, don't you?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And I remember, I don't think I had seen the goals for about 5 days because... Or maybe I got a computer in the hotel and looked at it on YouTube. But amazing. Absolutely amazing.
You know what I love about it is one of them. There's a couple of goals. I can think of 3 goals where you should have scored, or not should have. I mean, Modric shouldn't have scored. But you know the rebound, the follow up is then. So you've got Alan Nielsen against Leicester in the final. You've got Defoe against West Ham from Stalteri's shot.
Oh, when the commentator goes, oh no.
Instantly, West Ham played the other day, and I can't remember who it was. I think it was City or somebody scored exactly the same goal against him. And I noticed the commentator didn't say, oh no. I mean, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And then that one there where like it's come off the post, but before it's gone in, you know it's in
Well, you
because
say
your
it's
man's
not an
following
easy.
up.
That is not an easy finish.
What,
Aaron
Lennon's?
I don't think
It
that's
was
an
on the
easy
bounce
finish.
with a left
On the
foot.
bounce, guys.
It was Aaron Lennon.
It wasn't
who,
Defoe, which was like, you know, in the goal almost.
I would have trusted Lennon with my life with that goal. Incidentally, by the way, against Newcastle, just had a flashback. Johnson had a chance. He cut it in on the right, yeah, and then left foot
Ballooned it
over. He'd done the really hard part. The only reason I think of this was Aaron Lennon against Chelsea when he'd done exactly the same.
Oh,
took it on
love
his
that,
right,
yes.
and then the left foot curled it in.
Not
yeah?
exactly similar composure, was it?
As Johnson done it, I had visions of Lennon in my head.
Yeah.
Lennon was a class
That was the first
quality
time we-
footballer.
Lennon North London derby was just a given, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He was so good against them
He loved it.
every time.
Loved it.
All right, I mentioned him. Shall we talk to Darren Bent? Let's do it. Delighted to be joined by former Tottenham forward and I have to say Arsenal fan Darren Bent. Thank you so much for joining us.
How you doing, gentlemen? You right?
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Darren. Right, I'm going to go straight in. Looking at this season, mixed start for Tottenham. How have you seen it?
Yeah, I'd agree. Obviously, the start against Leicester, with the point. I think there have been times this season though where you guys have looked pretty good. I like the sign of Solanke. A lot of people have said it's a lot of money, but I think he's come off the back of a really good season with Bournemouth. Obviously, Son, Maddison looks like he's fresh. The Van de Ven injury, depending on how long he's going to be out, might be a bit of an issue. But no, I quite like the options. Obviously, Wilson Odebear as well. I think he's a really good player. So yeah, the start maybe has not been maybe as prolific as you probably have wanted, but with the obviously result against Newcastle as well, I still think there's signs that were good because even though you lost the game against Newcastle, I thought you were the better side. You had more than enough chances. You just didn't take them.
It's been a big clear out for Spurs. As a player who has maybe stayed on, what's it like when you see 7 or 8 come or go, 5 or 6 come in? Does it often hard to start the season when a whole raft of new players, when a lot of players have gone out the other side?
A little bit. I guess a lot of it depends on the characters that come in as well. I mean, I'm not saying I don't really know any of them, but they all look like good characters. Like Solanke coming in looks like a good guy. Wilson Odebear, young kid. So I think it depends who comes in. Like I've been in situations where we've had loads of people come in, but it's just the wrong characters and it's completely messed up the dressing room. And it's hard to recover. Before you know it, you're struggling for form. It's halfway through the season and things are just not clicking. I don't think it'll take that long for Spurs. And even though they've brought a lot in, as I said, they're good players. I think a lot of them are hungry as well, points to prove. Someone like a Solanke's been at Chelsea, went to Liverpool, didn't quite happen for him. He went to Bournemouth, kind of applied his trade, had a really good kind of season last year, and now he feels like he's ready to step back up to Tottenham. So I think all the signings they've made have been really shrewd and have all got points to prove.
You touched on Solanke a few times there. As someone that came to Tottenham with a big reputation as an England forward, how do you sort of see Solanke doing? And do you think he's got a good chance to get in the England squad eventually?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was quite harsh that he missed out on the Euros, if I'm honest, because I get it. You got Tony Watkins, who'd been brilliant, Harry Kane, but when you're going to score 19 Premier League goals for, no disrespect, Bournemouth, do you know what I mean? It carries weight. So I think he can 100% get himself back into the England squad. I'm a big fan of his. I think he's got all the attributes. He's quick, he's powerful, he's strong, can score a goal. And I think he's quite creative as well. So I think that was probably the one area since Kane's gone and missing. You're never going to replace someone Kane like for like. He's one of the best ever. But when you bring someone like him, I don't think Richarlison is up to it. But I think with someone like Solanke, I definitely think if he can stay fit, I think you've got someone there who could easily for the next 2-3 years get between 15 and 20 goals for sure.
Yeah, and I think what I hate to talk about Arsenal, but we kind of have to. What Arsenal have done very well is stuck with Mikel Arteta, and he spoke a lot in the beginning about trusting the process, and I think that's where Spurs are at the minute with Ange. But thinking about Arsenal going into this season, what is now what does success look like for Arsenal now? Because if you finish second again, have you fallen short? Would it be a big disappointment at this point?
It would be, but I think at times as well, you've got to put into context about what you're up against. I mean, obviously the team that are winning the league at the minute won it 4 times in a row. I mean, we've never ever seen that before. And when you look at their squad depth, I mean, you're looking at people like Rodri and Foden who haven't even kicked the ball yet, and they're still where they are in the league. So if Arsenal finish second, no, I wouldn't see that as coming up short. I think if Arsenal was to finish second and Manchester City didn't win the league and it was Liverpool that won the league, then you go, okay, something's not right here. But if you keep losing to Manchester City and you're getting 90 points, touching 90 points, I mean, what are you supposed to do? But no, I think when you look at Arteta, it's getting to the point where, listen, he's been fantastic. I wouldn't want him to leave. But the fans are going to want to see something. Do you know what I mean? Like a trophy of some sort. He won the FA Cup quite early on. You want to see another trophy. And I think for Big Ange as well, there are going to be times where Spurs fans are going to be frustrated. I was frustrated with Arteta, certainly at the start after the FA Cup. But once you kind of allow him to kind of take the process forward, get the players out he wants, get the players that he wants in, and then you can quite clearly see a plan, then I think long term, I think you'll start to go, okay, I can see what he's trying to do.
And looking at the Arsenal squad, do you see there as being an area where there is a weakness? Because like for Tottenham, we could say left back, left centre back, backup keeper. I look at Arsenal, I just wonder about that number 9.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the kind of general consensus about where can you find a number 9. But I think that's the problem, is who do you bring in? Because there's not too many of them about. And the ones that are about are going to cost you a lot of money to kind of bring them in. So it's like, I think Havertz will get his goals. He's not going to be prolific. That's just not him. But I think Arsenal are going to have to rely on, I don't know, 10 to 15 from Saka, maybe 10 goals from Trossard, 10 from Martinelli, maybe 10 from Havertz. So they're going to have to spread it out because unfortunately, Arsenal haven't got that striker that's just like 20, 30 goals a season. They haven't got that. So I think that's probably the one area. But in other areas, I would like to maybe have seen a little bit of backup for Saka, because I think for him, he plays every single week. Now, Sterling coming in, I think it's a massive, massive difference, because there is your backup. It's just what does, not so much Sterling got left, but how hungry is he? Now, I know him. I think he's a good character. He's definitely someone who's got a point to prove, considering where he's been. So in forward areas, I think we're okay, but I can understand why you'd think the lack of number 9 would be a little bit of a concern.
Darren, before we ask you about your thoughts on Sunday, you've played in the North London derby, you've scored in it, you've scored in an East Anglia derby for Ipswich against Norwich, you've scored in a Time Weird derby for Sunderland against Newcastle. You've pretty much done it all. What was it like to play in the North London derby?
Do you know what I'd always say when people have asked me this question? It wasn't the most ferocious, because when I played in that derby at that present time, Arsenal were just so much better than us. So it was just one of those where if we got a point, like the 4-4, it was like a celebration. I mean, in terms of a footballing derby, it was one of the best I've ever played, and probably the best, because the amount of players that played for Arsenal, the ones we had, like Modric, people like that, it was the best. I mean, the most ferocious is the time where Newcastle Sunderland was just crazy. From the moment we left the hotel, trying to get into the stadium, it was just people everywhere attacking the coach. But Arsenal's wasn't really like that, but it was still an incredible derby. And just to see the quality and the pace that the game's played at, was that I always preferred it, if I'm honest, at White Hart Lane. I always thought the games there were just incredible. But fantastic derby to be involved in.
29th of October 2008. Come the end, this man here, Gary, and you were one of the few Spurs representatives left in the ground. You stayed on.
Yeah.
You made it 3-2.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah.
So an Arsenal fan scoring against Arsenal. How did that feel?
Well, do you know what? I mean, if you look at my goal record for all clubs, I mean, I think Arsenal were the second team I scored against the most.
Really?
So it's Bolton, then Arsenal.
Point to prove.
A little bit. Yeah, maybe a little bit of that. But do you know what? It was just one of those where, as I'm standing on the sideline to come on, I think they go and get the third, and I'm like, oh, all right, it's gonna be a long 20 minutes. Here we go chasing the ball. And then I remember Almunia dropping it and me putting it in and thinking, okay, there's a chance here. But then when they go and get the fourth, I think a lot of people, and I'm sure Spurs fans included, are thinking, it's game over.
Yeah.
And then the last 3 or 4 minutes are just insane. Yeah. Obviously, first of all, Modric scoring. Was it Modric? No, Jermaine scores, obviously. Yeah. A lovely curler. Yeah. And then even when Modric hits the post and then Aaron Lennon comes back and puts it in, it's just, what is going on? Because we run over to that side to celebrate. And as you said, there's 15 fans left. So, and one of them ends up on the pitch.
Yeah. I wasn't the one on the pitch.
It was an incredible game, an incredible end to a game. And again, probably one of the most memorable games I've probably played in without winning.
What was it like in the dressing room after? Because obviously Harry had just come in and, we were bottom of the league, and I think we beat Bolton on the Saturday or Sunday and then went to Arsenal and got a draw out of nowhere. And I remember seeing the scenes with, I think it was Bentley dancing in front of the away fans, and it, seemed like great vibes. Did it sort of carry on in the dressing room? I know it was only a draw, but at that time it felt like a win.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was an incredible atmosphere in the dressing room afterwards, because you don't do that to Arsenal at that time. Do you know what I mean? They were just so better, so much better than us. Do you know what I mean? Especially when you're 4-2 down with about 10 minutes to go, you're thinking it's game over. So yeah, I mean, celebrating on the pitch in front of the away fans, and then in the dressing room, the atmosphere. And I remember Harry just saying, see, that's why you got to keep believing. And he was in hysterics because, as you said, we beat Bolton on the weekend, then get the point against Arsenal. It was just a really, really feel-good factor kind of, I'd say, game. And then it almost kick-started us that little period, because we went on a bit of a run after that and picked up some really good results.
So looking ahead to the weekend, like I said, Spurs have had a bit of a stop-start. Arsenal, I don't think are firing quite yet. How do you see it going?
Well, I think Arsenal got off to the same start last season, where they weren't quite firing either, and people thought, when are they going to get going again? I think midfield's going to be key, because no Rice, no Moreno. You start thinking, well, what's Arsenal going to do in there? So Partey will obviously play, Odegaard will be in there, and it's, do you put Havertz in there, do you put Trossard in there, or do you go something completely different? So
there's talk of Timber or Jorginho. Yeah, he's got options.
He has got options, but I think that's where the battle will be won and lost. I mean, it's going to be a great game. They always are. They're never slow burners, these North London derbies. I think the first goal is going to be key. I think whoever can get the first goal, I think will give them a real spring in their step. Yes, Arsenal have had a good start with the 7 points they've got. And Spurs, as you said, maybe a mixed start, but I still think their performances, and I know they got beat by Newcastle. I think if you're a Spurs fan, you look at that performance and go, went to a tough place, which is in James's Park, and should have won.
Yeah.
But you ultimately end up losing because of individual really mistakes. So I think it's going to be close. I really do.
Prediction, come on, off the fence.
I'm going to go 3-2 Arsenal. Sorry, guys.
Same as last year, wasn't it?
Same as last year.
Same as last year, but hopefully it would not be 3-0 down after whatever it was. All right, Darren, listen, really, really great to talk to you, and I really appreciate you coming on.
No worries at all, anytime.
Great to chat to Darren. We've talked to him now about the Spurs Arsenal fixture. We've also got some extra content in our members area. As I said at the top of the show, go into our YouTube channel and click join. Join the community, the Echo of Glory community. We will be delighted to have you. There's a bit of extra chats with Darren in there, some other bits and pieces do that. We had a chat with him about his Spurs career, got his Spurs 5-a-side team. He played with some wonderful players. So
Good
that's
team.
a really good team that he's picked there. Different levels to join. They all give you the same thing, really, but support us. Will be really, really delighted if you could. But you in the mood for Sunday? How do you feel about that game? Like, I'm not nervous yet. I think I'll be nervous on the day, but buzzing.
It's not a game to enjoy. I think the only time that I've gone to a North London derby and really felt that we were going to absolutely do him was that Conte one.
What a night.
When we were flying at that time. Absolutely flying. It was towards the end of the season as well. I was also confident in our last home game against them at White Hart Lane. I knew we'd do them on that. That was the second to last home game, and I absolutely knew we'd do them.
Wembley as well. I think that was. I know we should have won that game by more, but we beat him at Wembley 1-0.
Yeah, Harry Kane's header, wasn't it?
I knew we'd beat him that day.
It's not a game you enjoy though. I don't like this early in the season. I don't like the 2:00 kickoff. I'd much rather it be mid-November, December, January under the lights. You know, like just with that sort of real cold, horrible sort of atmosphere around. That's what I really like.
What, the exact kind of weather where some would go completely missing and not fancy it.
and also, by the way, going back to Newcastle, Son, I thought was very good on the left.
Yeah, he's got.
I thought
we know that though. We know that.
I thought it was a mistake on Andrew's part
left
to move him into the middle in the second half because he had his fullback on toast. But no, look, it's one of these games where it's very, very hard to enjoy it until the full-time whistle when the whistle blows and you've won.
How did you feel going into last year's game?
I was in Dubai, so I didn't quite. I mean, I know I was very nervous, just wanted to get away from the family as quickly as I could, yeah, I felt positive because I always feel like, as Tom said, like I just always feel we've got a good chance. This
we do.
Anfield.
I think the way I always sort of judge an North London derby is, and all of us have got Arsenal mates. They're not looking forward to it, and that's when you know. And I remember when they came to us in January 23, was it? When they won 2-0. And they really, you know, we all sort of feared the worst that day, and they were really confident. And even this time, well, not this time last year, but the end of last season, they didn't fancy it. And that always seems to tell me what sort of chance we've got of beating them.
I think Rice,
in my opinion,
Rice is a big miss.
Yeah.
And he throws that midfield into a little bit of chaos.
Yeah, I mean, Darren mentioned 5 names there. I think
it'll be Jorginho. I see maybe some saying Timber or Ben White or Zinchenko. I don't see him.
I'd be very surprised. I'd be very surprised if they took like Ben White out of the back line.
It will be Jorginho.
I'm sure it'll be Jorginho, and that actually, you know, he's somebody that you can press. We did it last season. Yeah. So, you know, there are chances. And like I say, people feel free to have their pops. I don't think that front three has got the speed.
Well, they got one. They got one which you fear. They got one of the best players in the league,
Saka,
and then 2 others who.
But I don't think they're as good as Newcastle up top. I think that Newcastle front three. I think
Havertz. Don't underestimate Havertz. He's been in form for months now.
He's a good player.
Top form.
But if you think about like how Tottenham play, I think we will push them back. I think they will get pushed back. I think we will play higher up the pitch than they will. And I think Newcastle are one of the best exponents of the break with the front three that they've got, better than Arsenal. Arsenal got the break last season.
They're not built for it. No, they don't. That's not how they play.
Also, you're talking about that Saka goal last season.
Yeah,
we had no Udogie that day as well. Remember? I think we had Davis, right?
Davis
made a big difference.
And there were,
fingers crossed that everyone gets through unscathed now.
Correct. And there were a load of things that happened in the build-up to that goal. I don't think Arsenal are built to break in the way that Newcastle are. So...
Well, Rice makes a massive difference because Rice gets them high.
All right, so look, on players they've got missing.
And
fine.
also from set pieces.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
of course.
So
Who would you pick if, touchwood, everyone's available for us? There's rumours that Solanke is back running. I saw some rumours he was still in his boot, but he might be back running. Who knows? He was set to be playing for this game, so let's assume that he's fit and that Van der Ven is fit. Back four picks itself. Who are you picking? Jake?
I would go Zuma, Kulu, Maddison, Johnson, Solanke, Son.
You'd play Johnson.
I've been thinking a lot about this recently. Is Kulusevski now a number 8? This is not an experiment because Solanke's out or this is this now or
I think he fancies him.
Bentancur. I could see him bringing Bentancur back in and maybe playing Kulu off the right. I don't know, but Johnson deserves to start after the other week.
But I also think he's a really good sub to have,
Yes,
as he
is.
showed against Newcastle. Gary, what would you do? I think it's a really tough one because
I think there's no guarantees with Solanke either.
I feel like no, but I think he'll play. I feel if Kulu is playing on the right, it's a waste of Kulu.
yeah,
It just doesn't feel like he's going to... I know a lot of fans would push Kulu out to the right, but it doesn't feel like that's going to happen. And he has been good so far when he's played.
I don't know.
It's tough, isn't it?
It is a really tough one. I don't know. I think we are going to.
Any chance he does something rogue?
Well, picks Danny Rose.
No. Does a Sarr play?
No, Danny Rose left back.
I'll tell you. Listen, I'm conscious that when we say something about a player on this pod, the player stands get very upset about it. You can't say this about that player. I love Sarr. I really, really do like Sarr. He's got a tremendous
I'm a big fan
tremendous value to the squad. I don't think he's the right player against Arsenal.
He doesn't. Yeah, in a home game. Yeah,
I think we are going to push them back. I think we will force them deep. I think we will dominate the ball.
You think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they'll let us have the ball.
Yeah, I think we will. And
At times.
I think we will. And I
don't think. I think it's going to be a lot of. It's almost like a futsal game where there are times where you retreat and there are times where you don't. And I think that's how the game is played out.
The problem you've got. You asked me what team would I play. I have a fundamental disagreement with Ange on the positions of two of our players. One is Sarr and one is Basuma. And I think Basuma is an 8 and Sarr is a 6.
So do I.
I actually think Sarr should be a 6. And if I was saying that it was going to be Sarr in the 6, which it won't be, it's just not going to be. So there's no point me even sort of saying this would be the team. But for me, I think Sarr should be coming through as a 6. I think he's got all the attributes to be a 6, much more so than an 8.
Yeah.
And Basuma has all the attributes to be an 8, much more so than a 6. I think he's got those two inverted, and it's wrong.
Bless you.
If you were asking me my personal team, I would have Sarr in the 6 with Basuma and Maddison, and then it's a toss-up of Kulusevski or Johnson. I'd probably go Kulusevski over Johnson.
To start, whether it's right or central.
I'd go Kulusevski over Johnson just because I always feel the more players you have that are comfortable on the ball, the better a team you're going to be. So, and that's not so...
Could Johnson get overawed by the occasion as well?
No, I don't think so. He's played a lot of
I
big
think
games.
Johnson coming on as a sub against any team is not what a fullback wants to see after 60 minutes. It's just not.
Especially as left back is a bit of an issue for Arsenal.
Yeah.
Zinchenko has not been good enough for
Timber
a while.
looks a player.
Timber does look a player, but his fitness is not there yet. Although he has played for Holland, but he's looked, a little bit leggy in the first few. So,
but I find this whole situation with Sarr and Basuma, it's an odd one because Sarr came into the team against AC Milan under Conte and played a deep lying role, and actually I thought that was, even to this point, one of his better performances for Tottenham. I thought he was really dominant in that game. And I saw him as a 6. That's what I thought he was. And yes, he's got the legs to get up and down. We know that. But I just don't think he is technically a good enough footballer to play high up the pitch. Whereas in a 6, and people will say, but you need your 6 to be able to take the ball off your centre-backs and beat that first press. I'm not sure that's how we actually really play. I don't think that Basuma receives the ball off our centre-backs all that much, if I'm honest. I don't see Basuma as being the quarterback of the team. I don't see the 6 in this Ange function being that. We don't really build from the back. So therefore, what you need in that 6 is a big, strong, leggy destroyer.
I agree.
who can just get it, give it, get it, give it, get it, give it. And actually, I think you're wasting Basuma in that role, and you're wasting Sarr in the 8. And Basuma is tailor-made to be an 8. Tailor-made for it. So I'm that's a frustration of mine forward for Ange.
All right, before we go, predictions, please.
1-1.
3-1 Tottenham.
Honestly,
Genuine.
there is no chance we score 3 goals.
Yeah, there is.
None.
Yeah, there is. Why not?
None.
Why not?
When was the last time Arsenal conceded 3 goals? In
They
the
nearly
Premier
did it
League?
last season when we were terrible.
Love that.
No, I hope I'm wrong so badly, but I would be gobsmacked.
You're going to get pelters in the YouTube comments this week, not me.
Me?
Yeah.
Gobsmacked.
Both of us
And
will.
I'm
People
happy to
call
be
me an
proven
idiot
wrong.
as
But
well.
when was the last time they conceded 3 goals in a Premier League game?
You're going to make me look it up.
But we've got it in us. We've got
do
it in
have
us
it
to
in
do.
us.
To be fair, we
Absolutely
nearly.
got it in us too.
Do you know what? I actually was reading the other. I think Arsenal have conceded 3 goals in their last 10 Premier League away games.
Right.
2 were against us.
Right, listen. We scored
is a
2.
diff-
We scored 2 away from them. 2 away from home.
Luton.
Yeah. We scored
So
2
not
away-
this year.
The only team to do it last season was Luton.
But we scored 2 goals away from them. We scored 2 goals away from home last season. Could have had more. Scored 2 goals at home last season. Could have had more. And I think we're better now than we were then.
I hope we beat them 4-0 and there's a clip of me and it goes everywhere.
Can't wait for that.
Couldn't be happier.
It could be 3-0 because you said we're not scoring 3. So
It'll
I'm
probably be
going to
5-3 defeat now.
say I'm going to say 2-2 or 2-1 Spurs. I think we've got a chance. Real chance. Of course,
It
we've got
feels
a
like a
chance.
real kickstart to the season.
Yeah, that's
It
it.
could really do it. We've got another home
And it
game.
could really damage them as well.
And despite some odd performances, not odd performances, so odd results, I think people are still content, and the ground will be, I think, buzzing, and people will be very
Oh
up
no,
for
of
it.
course it will. Of course it will. Of
You know,
course
there's
it will.
pressure on them as well. You know their next game?
City away. Yeah.
City
It's a
away.
big week for them.
Right? They've
Yeah.
drawn to Brighton.
They have to beat us.
Yeah.
In
they've
this
drawn
kind
to-
of title race, they have to win already.
They've drawn to Brighton, then they've got us, and then they've got City, right? They've got to beat us.
And they've got Champions League in there
Yeah,
as well.
there's
So
pressure on them.
it's a
If we
big week
beat
for them.
If we beat them, it's a serious dent.
We've talked too much about them. Fuck it. Oh, I swore. Is that going to kill the algorithm?
I'll just say, let's go and do it. Let's go and put them away, launch our season, and kill them dead.
I've got to run because I'm going to get a parking ticket in about 2.5 minutes. So, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
You're going on holiday?
I'm not even watching the game.
You're at a wedding. He's at a
I'm not
wedding.
watching it.
And then you're
I
on.
feel so detached to it. I don't feel like nervous or I don't know. It just feels all a bit of a weird.
You will
a
as
bit-
it gets closer.
I don't know.
I'm going to get a parking
nervous.
ticket.
I'm
in a
nervous
minute.
now that I've been talking about it.
I'm nervous.
I
I'm going to
hadn't
get a
really
parking
thought about
ticket.
Go on, let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. As I say, join the Echo of Glory community. Sign up to the members. There's some great content in there, and we'll be delighted to have you up the Spurs.